Captain Hyun stood at the viewing window of the diplomatic vessel, watching the massive orbital station grow larger as they approached. The station hung in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. He had made this journey many times over the past 5 years, but today felt different. Today felt wrong. "Captain, we're receiving the docking clearance," said the communications officer. "Bay 17, as requested." Hyun nodded but said nothing. Behind him, Dr. Nari was reviewing her tablet, her face tight with concern. She had been reading the intercepted messages all morning, the whispers that had been spreading through council channels for weeks. "They're really going to do it," Nari said quietly. "Aren't they?" "We don't know that for certain," Hyun replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Ambassador Tae Yang believes he can still change their minds." Nari looked up at him. "Do you believe that?" Hyun didn't answer. He couldn't. The signs had been there for months. Human trade vessels turned away from ports without explanation. Research partnerships suddenly canceled. Meetings postponed indefinitely. The galaxy had been growing cold toward humanity, and now they would find out why. The ship docked smoothly, and soon Hyun and Nari were walking through the pristine corridors of the council station. Aliens of every description moved past them, tall beings with too many arms, floating creatures that glowed with inner light, insectoid warriors in ceremonial armor. 50 years ago, humanity had thought they were alone in the universe. Then the council had found them, welcomed them, and everything changed. Or so they had thought. Ambassador Tae Yang met them outside the council chambers. The older man looked tired, his usually neat hair disheveled, his eyes carrying the weight of sleepless nights. He had served humanity for 3 decades, first as a diplomat on Earth, then as their voice among the stars. "Ambassador," Hyun said, offering a respectful bow. "What's the situation?" Tae Yang sighed deeply. "Not good, Captain. The vote has already been decided. I've spent the last 2 weeks speaking with every council member who would see me. They've made up their minds." "But why?" Nari asked. "What have we done?" "Everything and nothing," Tae Yang said bitterly. "We're too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable. They fear us, and fear makes them cruel." The doors to the council chambers opened, and they entered the vast, circular room. Hundreds of seats rose in tiers around a central platform, each occupied by a representative of the council's member species. At the highest point sat Councillor Vrath, an insectoid being whose species had founded the council 2,000 years ago. His multiple eyes reflected the chamber's lights like black mirrors. "The human delegation may approach," Vrath's voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly by the room's systems. Tae Yang walked to the center platform, and Hyun and Nari followed. The weight of countless alien eyes pressed down on them. Hyun had faced combat situations that felt less threatening than this moment. "Ambassador Tae Yang of Earth," Vrath began, "the Council has completed its deliberations regarding humanity's membership. We will now announce our decision." "Counselor, if I may speak," Tae Yang started. "You may not," Vrath cut him off. "The time for words has passed. The vote has been cast, and the decision is final." A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing human space as a red sphere surrounded by the green territories of council members. As they watched, a blue line appeared around the human sphere, growing thicker and brighter. "Effective immediately, humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council," Vrath announced. "Furthermore, a quarantine barrier will be established around all human-controlled space. This barrier will extend 200 light-years in every direction from your star, Earth. All contact between humans and council species is hereby forbidden." The chamber erupted in a mixture of sounds. Some species chittered with approval. Others remained silent. A few voiced what might have been objections, but they were quickly drowned out. Tae Yang's voice rang out, clear and strong despite his shock. Counselor Vrath, this is madness. We have done nothing to warrant such treatment. For 50 years, we have honored every agreement, contributed to Council research, and defended Council space when called upon. We have been loyal members. You have been dangerous members, Vrath interrupted. Your species makes war upon itself even as you reach for the stars. You solve problems with violence. You expand without regard for the harmony of established territories. You are unpredictable, unstable, and unworthy of standing among civilized species. We are young, Tae Yang argued. Every species goes through growing periods. You cannot condemn us for... We do not condemn you, Vrath said, and there was something in his tone that chilled Hyun to the bone. We simply choose to no longer associate with you. Perhaps in isolation, humanity will mature. Or perhaps you will destroy yourselves, as we suspect. Either way, it will happen far from the rest of us. Nari stepped forward, her voice shaking with anger. You're afraid of us. That's what this is really about. You're afraid that given time we might surpass you. Several council members reacted with agitation, but Vrath remained calm. Your arrogance proves our point, human. You have been among us for barely a moment in galactic terms, and already you believe yourselves exceptional. This is precisely why you must be separated. When does the barrier activate? Hyun asked, his military training keeping his voice steady even as rage burned inside him. In 30 standard days, Vrath replied. You have that long to return all Council technology in your possession and remove your vessels from Council space. Any human ship that remains beyond that point will be destroyed. The barrier will prevent all travel, all communication, all contact between our peoples and yours. This is a death sentence, Tae Yang said quietly. Without Council technology, without trade, our colonies will adapt or perish, Vrath finished. That is no longer our concern. This Council session is concluded. Guards, escort the humans to their vessel. As armored aliens moved to flank them, Hyun placed a hand on Tae Yang's shoulder. The ambassador looked broken, decades of work crumbling in a single morning. They walked through corridors that suddenly felt hostile, every alien they passed looking at them with suspicion or contempt. Back on the ship, Hyun immediately contacted Earth. The news would devastate the home world and all human colonies. 50 years of progress, of reaching for the stars, of believing they had found their place in the grand cosmic community, all of it ending. What do we do, Captain? His first officer asked. Hyun looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that was about to become forbidden to his species. We go home. We warn everyone, and we prepare. Prepare for what? For whatever comes next, Hyun said. If they want to lock us away, then we'll show them what humans can do when we only have ourselves to rely on. They think isolation will destroy us. Let's prove them wrong. As the ship pulled away from the station, Nari joined him at the window. Do you think we'll ever see the stars again? The real stars, I mean. Beyond our little prison. Yes, Hyun said with certainty. I don't know when and I don't know how, but yes. Humans don't give up. They're going to regret this decision, Nari. Maybe not today, maybe not for a long time, but they will regret it. 29 days later, the last human ship crossed the invisible line in space. Behind them, the barrier activated with a pulse of energy that lit up the darkness. Earth and all its colonies were alone, cut off from the galaxy that had rejected them. The silence that followed was deafening. 75 years had passed since the barrier went up, and the galaxy beyond had become nothing more than stories told by the very old. Admiral Jiwoo had never seen it himself. He had been born 3 years after the severing, his father Captain Hyun dying when he was only 12. But his father's words had stayed with him all his life. They will regret this decision. Jiwoo stood in the command center of Orbital Station Guardian, looking at the massive view screen that showed human space. Hundreds of ships moved between planets and stations, trade routes crisscrossing the void. Humanity had not died in isolation. They had adapted. "Admiral, Engineer Bo-Ra is here to see you," his aide announced. "Send her in." Bo-Ra entered carrying a tablet and wearing the expression she always had when she was excited about something. She was young, only 32, but she was brilliant. She had been studying the barrier for the past 8 years, ever since graduating from the New Seoul Institute of Advanced Physics. "Admiral, we've detected something significant," Bo-Ra said without preamble. "The barrier is weakening, not everywhere but in specific points. The decay pattern suggests it will fail completely within 6 to 8 months. Jiwoo felt his heart race. "You're certain?" "As certain as I can be without actually poking it with something," Bo-Ra replied. "We've been monitoring quantum fluctuations for years. The pattern is unmistakable now. Whatever technology the Council used to build this thing, it wasn't designed to last forever." "Does anyone else know?" "Just my team. I came directly to you." Jiwoo nodded slowly, his mind already working through the implications. "If the barrier falls, we'll be exposed again. We have no idea what's out there anymore. They could be waiting to finish what they started. Or they could be gone," Bo-Ra said. 75 years is a long time, even for advanced civilizations. Things change." "Things change," Jiwoo agreed. "Especially us." That evening, Jiwoo attended a meeting of the Human Coalition government. Director Sung-ho led the assembly, his gray hair and lined face marking him as one of the few still alive who remembered life before the barrier. The chamber was filled with representatives from every human colony, from Earth to the furthest mining outposts in the outer systems. "We need to discuss preparedness," Jiwoo told them after Bo-Ra presented her findings. "When the barrier falls, we must be ready for first contact all over again." "First contact," Sung-ho said, with a bitter laugh. "Last time that happened, they threw us away like garbage. Why should we want anything to do with them?" "Because they're still out there," said Hana, a young historian who specialized in pre-isolation records. "And we need to know what happened to them. More importantly, they need to know what happened to us." Hana had spent years studying the old council records that humanity had managed to keep. She stood now, projecting images onto the main screen. "I've found evidence that the council has done this before. Twice in their recorded history, they isolated other species. One of those species is never mentioned again in the records. The other eventually rejoined the council, but only after 300 years. "They left us to die," someone said from the back. "Why should we help them if they're in trouble?" "Because that's what makes us different from them," Jiwoo said firmly. "They acted out of fear and arrogance. We can choose to act with wisdom." The debate continued for hours, but eventually a decision was reached. Humanity would prepare for the barrier's fall. They would send scout ships. They would be cautious but not hostile, and they would show the galaxy what 75 years of isolation had created. In the weeks that followed, Jiwoo visited the shipyards orbiting Mars. What he saw there filled him with pride. The ships being built bore no resemblance to the vessels that had once traveled council space. These were human designs, born from necessity and innovation. The Council had used jump gates to travel between stars, massive structures that bent space. When humanity lost access to those gates, their scientists had to find another way. The result was the Void Drive, a technology that worked on completely different principles. It was faster than the old jump gates, required no infrastructure, and used quantum mechanics in ways that would have seemed impossible 75 years ago. "Beautiful, aren't they?" said the shipyard director, an older woman named Commander Il-Soo. She had been an engineer on one of the last ships to return through the barrier all those years ago. "We built them ourselves. Every component, every system. Nothing from the Council. Nothing we owe to anyone but ourselves. How many are ready? Jiwoo asked. 53 combat vessels, 120 cargo ships, and 37 scout ships designed specifically for exploration. More coming online every month. Jiwoo walked along the observation deck, watching workers in spacesuits moving across the hull of a massive battleship. We've changed, Ilsu, in ways the Council never imagined we could. We had to, Ilsu replied. After the barrier went up, we almost fell apart. Food shortages, resource conflicts, colony rebellions. Those first 10 years were hell, but then we unified. We had to, or we'd die. The human coalition was born from necessity, but it became something better than what we had before. It was true. Before the isolation, humanity had been fractured. Thousands of competing governments and corporations. Now there was one government, one purpose, one direction. It had come at a cost, but it had made them strong. Bora's predictions proved accurate. 6 months later, long-range sensors detected the first fluctuations in the barrier's outer edge. Jiwoo assembled his fleet, 50 ships ready to venture beyond human space for the first time in 75 years. On Earth, in the Coalition Assembly, Director Sung-ho addressed the world. Tomorrow, we breach the barrier. Tomorrow, we discover what has become of the galaxy that abandoned us. We do not go as supplicants begging for acceptance. We do not go as warriors seeking revenge. We go as humans, ready to face whatever we find with courage and wisdom. That night, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. He walked through the empty corridors of his flagship, the vessel named Defiance. In the observation lounge, he found Hana standing at the window, staring at the stars. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much history happening," Hana replied with a slight smile. "I study the past, but tomorrow we make the future." "Are you afraid?" "Terrified," Hana admitted, "and excited and hopeful, all at once." "That's very human of you." "That's very human of all of us, Admiral." The next morning, Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by his crew. Through the view screen, he could see the barrier, a faint shimmer against the darkness of space. Bora had identified the weakest point, a place where the quantum field was already breaking down. "All ships report ready," said the communications officer. "Engineering reports void drive at full capacity," added another. Jiwoo took a deep breath. His father's face flashed through his mind, the old man's final words before the cancer took him. "When the time comes, show them what we became." "All ships," Jiwoo said, his voice carrying to every vessel in the fleet. "Prepare for barrier breach. We go together. We face the unknown together, and whatever we find out there, we face it as humans. Engage void drives." The ships began to move, accelerating toward the barrier. Energy built around their hulls, the distinctive blue glow of void drive technology. As they approached the shimmering field that had imprisoned them for 3/4 of a century, Jiwoo felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear, not anger. Hope. The ships hit the barrier, and for a moment everything turned white. Sensors screamed with data overload. Then suddenly they were through. For the first time in 75 years, human ships sailed the open galaxy. Around them, stars blazed in formations that no human had seen in living memory. Space stretched out in every direction, unlimited and free. "We're through," the navigator said, voice filled with wonder. "Admiral, we're actually through." "Set course for the nearest council system," Jiwoo ordered. "Let's see what's left of the galaxy that left us behind." But what they would find would shock them more than anything they had imagined. Captain Yuna brought the Silent Dawn out of Void Drive at the edge of the Talmar system, the first council territory humans had encountered in 75 years. What she saw on her scanners made her blood run cold. "Captain, I'm reading debris fields," her sensor officer reported. "Thousands of objects." ship fragments, station components, and bodies. The view screen showed a graveyard. What should have been a thriving system with orbital stations and trade ships was instead filled with wreckage. A massive station hung in orbit around the fourth planet, but it was dark, its lights extinguished. No ships moved, no signals transmitted. "Life signs?" Yuna asked. "Scanning. I'm getting faint readings from the planet's surface. Some settlements still have power, but the orbital infrastructure appears completely abandoned." Yuna had been chosen to command one of the scout vessels because of her caution and judgment. Admiral Jiwoo trusted her to make the right calls. Now she had to decide whether to investigate or report back. "Take us closer to the planet," she ordered. "Shields up, weapons ready. I want constant scanning for any threats." As they approached, more details emerged. The debris wasn't from battle. There were no blast marks, no signs of weapons fire. Instead, the ships and stations appeared to have simply been abandoned, left to drift until collisions created the debris field. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress beacon," communications reported. "It's old, maybe 30 years or more, automated. The message is in Talmar language." "Play it." The message was brief and chilling. "This is Station Prime. The withering has reached us. We are evacuating to the surface. All ships are advised to avoid this system. We are dying here." "The withering," Yuna repeated. "What is that?" No one had an answer. She ordered the message recorded and transmitted back to Admiral Jiwoo, then continued the careful approach to the planet. As they entered orbit, they could see that the surface was not entirely dark. Some cities still had lights, though far fewer than a planet this size should have supported. "Captain, we're being hailed," communications said. "Audio only. It's weak." "Put it through." The voice that came through was thin and desperate, speaking in Talmar but translated by their systems. "Unknown vessel, please identify. Are you here to help? We need medical supplies, food, anything you can spare. The withering continues to spread." Yuna leaned forward. "This is Captain Yuna of the Human Coalition vessel. Silent Dawn. We are exploratory mission from human space. What is the withering? What happened here?" There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, filled with shock. "Humans. But the humans were isolated. The barrier has fallen. We're here to see what became of Council space." "What happened to you?" The Talmar on the other end of the line seemed to struggle with words. 40 years ago, a plague emerged. We call it the withering. It attacks the nervous system of most Council species. There is no cure. It spreads slowly but inevitably. World after world has fallen. Our population was 3 billion. Now we are less than 50 million. Yuna exchanged glances with her crew. 50 million from 3 billion. An extinction-level event. "Why didn't the Council help you?" she asked. "The Council tried," the Talmar replied bitterly. "But the withering affects most species in the Council. Only a few are immune. Resources became scarce. Fighting broke out. The Council collapsed 30 years ago. Each species is on its own now." Before Yuna could respond, her sensor officer interrupted. "Captain, I'm detecting ships approaching, 6 vessels armed. They're not broadcasting identification." The view screen shifted to show 6 ships emerging from behind the planet's moon. They were mismatched, clearly cobbled together from different sources. Pirates, Yuna realized. In the chaos of a dying galaxy, some chose to prey on the weak. "The raiders," the Talmar voice said with despair. "They come every few months to take what little we have left. We have no defenses." Yuna made her decision in an instant. Admiral Jiwoo had ordered them to observe and report, not engage. But she hadn't joined the fleet to watch innocent people be murdered. "Battle stations," she commanded. "Charge weapons. Helm, put us between those raiders and the planet." "Captain, we're just a scout ship," her first officer objected. 6 against 1. Our odds I've faced before, Yuna finished. Communications, send a message to those raiders. Tell them to leave this system immediately. The raiders' response was to open fire. Energy weapons lashed out, but the Silent Dawn was already moving. Human ships were faster than Council vessels, their void drive technology allowing for instant acceleration. The raiders' shots missed completely. Return fire, Yuna ordered. Target their engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Human weapons technology had advanced significantly during isolation. While Council species had stagnated with the same energy weapons for centuries, humans had developed plasma accelerators that were both more powerful and more precise. The Silent Dawn's weapons were small by warship standards, but effective. The first raider ship lost its engines in seconds, going dark as its power failed. The second tried to run but was caught by a perfect shot that crippled its drive system. The remaining 4 raiders suddenly realized they were outmatched. They scattered, fleeing in different directions. Let them go, Yuna said. They'll spread the word that human ships are not to be trifled with. In the aftermath, the Talmar voice returned, filled with wonder. You saved us. Humans saved us, after everything the Council did to you. We're not here for revenge, Yuna replied. We're here to understand what happened, and maybe to help, if we can. She ordered her medical officer and a security team to shuttle down to the planet's surface. What they found shocked them. The Talmar were not some distant alien species. They were people, suffering and dying, and watching their civilization crumble around them. Dr. Deho, the xenoarchaeologist serving with Yuna's crew, spent days studying abandoned Council facilities in the system. What he discovered was even more disturbing. The withering wasn't natural. It was a bioweapon created by a Council species to attack a rival, but it had mutated, becoming far more deadly than intended and spreading beyond all control. The Arrogance, Deho said, as he transmitted his findings back to the Silent Dawn. They created something they couldn't control, and when it escaped, they were too proud to share information with other species. Each Council member tried to find a cure on their own, refusing to cooperate. By the time they realized they needed to work together, it was too late. Meanwhile, Admiral Jiwoo received reports from other scout ships. Every Council system they visited told the same story. Devastation, abandonment, desperate survivors clinging to dying worlds. The proud galaxy that had expelled humanity was in ruins. In Council core space, ancient Councilor Vrath sat in his chambers, now more tomb than palace. His species, once billions strong, numbered less than 3 million. He was old, far older than he should have been, kept alive by machines because there was no one left to replace him. When reports came of human ships in Council space, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. The humans had returned, and they commanded technology his sensors couldn't fully analyze. Ships that moved like nothing in Council records. Weapons of unknown design. After 75 years of isolation, humanity had emerged stronger. With shaking limbs, Vrath composed a message. It took him 3 days to write, 3 days to overcome the pride that had defined his entire life. When it was done, he transmitted it across all remaining Council channels. To the humans who were once part of our Council, I am Vrath, who cast you into isolation. I was wrong. The Council was wrong. We let fear and arrogance guide us, and we have paid a terrible price. Our galaxy is dying. The plague called the Withering has destroyed us. We who thought ourselves so advanced, so civilized, so superior to you, now beg for your help. If you have any mercy, if you have any compassion, please help us. We are dying. When the message reached Admiral Jiwoo, he called an emergency meeting of his command staff. On the view screen was Vrath's face, ancient and broken, pleading for aid. They want our help, Jiwoo said quietly, The same species that locked us away to die now ask us to save them. Do we have a cure for this withering? Someone asked. Dr. Bo-Ra thinks we might, Ji-Woo replied. Human biology is different enough that the plague doesn't affect us. She believes our nanotechnology research might hold the key, but creating a cure will take resources, time, and effort. Why should we help them? Another officer asked. They made their choice 75 years ago. Ji-Woo looked at Vrath's face on the screen. The proud counselor who had condemned humanity now reduced to begging. There was satisfaction in that, yes, but there was also responsibility. Because we're better than they were, Ji-Woo said finally. Because we choose mercy over revenge. Because if we let an entire galaxy die when we could save it, we become exactly what they feared we were. He stood, straightening his uniform. Send a response to Counselor Vrath. Tell him that humanity will help. But it will be on our terms this time. No more arrogance. No more councils that put some species above others. If we save them, we do it together. Equals. The message was sent, and across the dying galaxy, hope flickered for the first time in decades. The debate on Earth lasted 3 days and nearly tore the human coalition apart. President Haywon stood at the podium of the Grand Assembly, looking out at representatives from every human world. Half of them wanted to help the dying council species. The other half wanted to leave them to their fate. They left us to die, shouted Representative Ki-jun, a man whose entire family had perished during the food shortages of the first isolation decade. My parents starved because the council cut us off from trade routes. My sister died in the colony wars that followed. Millions of humans suffered because of their arrogance. Now they want our mercy. And we will give it to them, President Haywon replied firmly. Not because they deserve it, but because we are better than our worst moments. We are better than they were. Ki-jun stood, his face red with anger. Better! They imprisoned us. They condemned us. And now you want to use our resources, our technology, our people to save them? What about the humans who still need help? What about the colony worlds that are barely surviving? It was a valid point, and Haywon knew it. 75 years of isolation had made humanity stronger, but not wealthy. Resources were still precious. Every ship, every medical team, every supply crate they sent to council space was something taken from their own people. I remember the hunger, Haywon said quietly, her voice carrying through the silent chamber. I was 10 years old when the barrier went up. I remember eating 1 meal a day because that was all there was. I remember my mother crying because she couldn't feed her children properly. I remember the darkness and the fear. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I also remember something else. I remember the day we chose to be united. The day we decided that no human would starve while another had food. The day we became the human coalition. We survived because we chose compassion over selfishness. Are we now going to abandon that principle because the ones suffering are not human? Ki-jun sat down slowly, his anger deflating into resignation. The vote was called. The measure passed, but barely. Humanity would help the council species, but on strict conditions. Admiral Ji-Woo coordinated the relief effort from his flagship. Human medical ships began arriving at dying worlds, bringing food, medicine, and hope. But the most important work was happening in a converted asteroid station, where Dr. Bo-Ra led a team of scientists. The withering attacks the nervous system, Bo-Ra explained to her team, displaying genetic sequences on the holographic screen. It's actually a modified virus, weaponized and then accidentally mutated. The Council tried to fight it with conventional medicine, but the virus adapts too quickly. So, how do we beat it? Asked one of the younger scientists. We don't fight the virus directly, Bo-Ra said with a slight smile. We use nanotechnology to repair the damage it causes and boost the immune system's ability to recognize it. The Council never developed nanotechnology to this level because their medical philosophy focused on external treatments. We had to go internal because we had no other choice during isolation. It took 6 months of intensive work. Bo-Ra barely slept, surviving on stimulants and determination. Her team worked around the clock, testing their cure on tissue samples from dozens of different species. The virus was clever, but human innovation was cleverer. Meanwhile, Admiral Jiwoo's fleet protected Council worlds from raiders and pirates. The lawless elements that had emerged during the collapse quickly learned that human ships were not to be challenged. Word spread across the galaxy. Humanity had returned, and they were stronger than anyone had imagined. On the dying world of Wrath's homeworld, the ancient counselor watched human ships orbit his planet through the window of his medical chamber. Human doctors had come to him, offering to extend his life, to make him comfortable. He had refused. He wanted to feel every moment of what was coming, deserved or not. A human officer came to visit him one evening. Admiral Jiwoo had come in person, the son of the captain who had been expelled all those years ago. "You look like your father," Wrath said in a weak voice. He had the same eyes, determined, unbreakable. "My father never stopped believing we'd return to the galaxy," Jiwoo said, sitting across from the dying alien. "He died thinking he'd failed, that he'd never see it happen." "I am sorry," Wrath said, "for what I did to your people, for what I did to your father. I let fear guide me. I thought humanity would become a threat, that your violence and unpredictability would endanger the Council. So I convinced the others to lock you away." "You were wrong," Jiwoo said simply. "I was," Wrath agreed. "But I was also right. You did become a threat, just not the threat I imagined. You became a threat to our arrogance, to our belief that we were superior. You became proof that isolation and hardship can forge strength rather than destroy it." Jiwoo leaned forward. "My people are working to save yours. Dr. Bo-Ra believes she's close to a cure, but there's a condition." "I expected as much," Wrath said. "What does humanity demand?" "The end of the Council as it existed," Jiwoo said. "No more hierarchy of species. No more treating some races as superior to others. If we save you, we create something new, a true alliance of equals." Wrath was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "The Council will resist. Some species still cling to the old ways, even as they die. They will not accept humans as equals." "Then they can die with their pride," Jiwoo said without emotion. "We're offering salvation, not begging for acceptance. Take it or leave it." "You have become hard," Wrath observed. "We have become realistic," Jiwoo corrected. "Hardship taught us that pretty words mean nothing without action." The Council spoke of unity and cooperation, but practiced exclusion and arrogance. We won't make that mistake. 3 weeks later, Dr. Bo-Ra announced success. The cure worked. It couldn't reverse damage already done, but it could stop the withering's progression and allow natural healing. More importantly, it could be mass-produced using human nanofactories. President Haiwan held a press conference that was broadcast across human space and transmitted to every Council world still capable of receiving it. She stood before the cameras, holding a small vial of silver liquid. "This is the cure for the withering," she announced. "Human science has accomplished what the Council could not. We are prepared to distribute this cure to every species that needs it, but there is a price." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "The price is change. The old Council is dead. It died when it chose fear over wisdom 75 years ago. What we offer now is a new beginning, a galactic alliance where no species is supreme, where decisions are made collectively, where isolation and abandonment are crimes against civilization itself. We also demand accountability," Haiwan continued, her voice hardening. The withering was created as a bioweapon by a council species. We want to know who, why, and how. We want guarantees that such weapons will never be created again. We want full disclosure of all dangerous research. Trust must be earned. Finally, she said, her tone softening, we demand that every species in this new alliance contribute according to their ability. Not tribute, not submission, but cooperation. We saved you this time. Next time, you save us. That's what allies do. The response from Council Space was mixed. Some species gratefully accepted the terms. Others protested that humanity was overstepping, that they had no right to dictate terms to civilizations thousands of years older. Those protests grew quieter as the death tolls continued to rise. One by one, the Council species agreed. Not all of them, and not happily, but they agreed. The cure was distributed. Human medical teams traveled to hundreds of worlds, administering the nanotech treatment. Death rates plummeted. Recovery began. Counselor Vrath lived to see his species begin to heal. In his final days, he asked to meet with President HFY. She came to his world, walking into his chamber with Admiral Jiwoo at her side. You came, Vrath said, his voice barely a whisper. You asked, HFY replied simply. I wanted to see the leader of the species I tried to destroy, Vrath said. I wanted to apologize in person, and I wanted to tell you something important. He paused, gathering strength. When we isolated you, I knew it might make you stronger. Some council members argued that hardship breeds innovation, that you might emerge more dangerous than before. But I was so certain of our superiority that I dismissed the risk. I thought we would always be ahead of you. You were wrong, HFY said. I was, Vrath agreed. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. What I wanted to say is this. Thank you. Thank you for being better than we were. Thank you for showing us what true civilization looks like. Thank you for saving us despite having every reason to let us die. He reached out with a trembling limb. HFY took it gently. We're not doing this for you, Counselor. We're doing it for ourselves, because this is who we choose to be. Vrath died 3 days later, the last of the old council leaders. His final words were recorded and became part of the historical archive. Let the humans lead. They have earned it. The cure saved billions. But the work of building a new alliance was just beginning. 20 years had passed since the cure was distributed. The galaxy was healing, both physically and culturally. Ambassador Hana stood at the window of the new Galactic Assembly Station, watching ships from 100 different species move through space. It was beautiful and chaotic, and completely different from what the old council had been. She was older now, gray streaking through her dark hair, but her eyes still held the curiosity that had made her a historian. Now she was a builder of history rather than just a recorder of it. As humanity's chief representative to the Assembly, she helped shape the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador, the session is about to begin, her aide reminded her. Hana turned from the window and walked toward the assembly chamber. The station was human-designed, built with technology that still amazed many species. Instead of the circular tiers of the old council, the new chamber had a round table. Every species sat at the same level. No one above, no one below. She took her seat next to representatives from the Talmar, the Vrelian Collective, and a dozen other species. Across from her sat President Minseo, the current leader of the Human Coalition. Minseo was young for a president, only 45, but she had grown up in the new era and understood both the old fears and new possibilities. The assembly is called to order, announced the rotating chairperson, a Vrelian whose translated voice was calm and measured. First item, the petition from the Keltar species for admission to the Galactic Alliance. Hana pulled up the file on her tablet. The Keltar were a newly contacted species, discovered by an exploratory mission just 6 months ago. They had basic space travel, but were not yet interstellar. The old council would have observed them from a distance for centuries before making contact. The new alliance had a different approach. "I've reviewed their file," said the Talmar representative. "They show promise but are technologically primitive. Perhaps we should wait before admitting them." "The old council thought we were primitive too," Hana said quietly. "That worked out well for everyone, didn't it?" There was uncomfortable silence around the table. Even after 20 years, the shame of the isolation still lingered for many species. It was a wound that would take generations to fully heal. "The question isn't whether they're primitive," President Minseo said. "The question is whether they're ready to be part of something larger than themselves. I've spoken with their leaders. They're frightened of the galaxy but also excited by it. They want to learn, to grow, to contribute." "Then we should help them," said another representative. "That's what we do now. We don't isolate, we include." The vote was called. The Keltar were admitted unanimously. It was the 47th species to join the alliance since its founding, and Hana felt a surge of pride. They were building something that had never existed before, a true galactic community based on equality and mutual support. After the session, Admiral Jiwoo found Hana in the observation lounge. He was retired from active military duty, but still served as an advisor to the human coalition. His hair had gone completely gray, and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were still sharp. "My father would have loved this," Jiwoo said, looking out at the diverse fleet of ships moving through space. "He died thinking humanity was alone. He never imagined we'd be leading a galactic alliance." "We're not leading it," Hana corrected gently. "We're part of it. That's an important distinction." "Fair enough," Jiwoo said with a smile. "Though between you and me, we're doing most of the heavy lifting." It was true, though neither of them would say it in public. Human technology remained ahead of most other species. The 75 years of isolation had forced innovations that the Council had never imagined. Void drives, nanotechnology, advanced AI integration, new approaches to energy generation. Humanity had leaped forward while the rest of the galaxy stagnated. But they shared it all. That was the key difference. Every advancement, every discovery, every new technology was shared freely with Alliance members. Some species worried that humans were being too generous, that they were giving away their advantages. But President Minseo had been clear in her philosophy. A strong alliance made everyone stronger, including humanity. "I received a message yesterday," Jiwoo said, "from the Keltar homeworld. Their leader wanted to thank humanity personally for supporting their admission. That's kind of them." "She also asked why," Jiwoo continued. "Why humanity pushes so hard for inclusion when we were once excluded ourselves. Why we don't use our technological superiority to dominate. Why we share instead of hoard." "What did you tell her?" "I told her about the isolation," Jiwoo said softly. "About the hunger and the fear and the desperate years when we thought we might not survive. I told her that hardship taught us what really matters. Not power, not superiority, not pride. Community matters. Cooperation matters. Being there for each other when things get dark." Hana nodded. "We learned it the hard way. The best lessons usually are." Later that day, Hana attended the dedication of a new monument in the station's central plaza. It was a black stone wall with names carved into it. 2 billion names. Every human who had died during the isolation years. The hungry, the sick, the casualties of the colony wars, the children who never got to see the stars they were born beneath. Dr. Bo-Ra stood at the monument, her hand resting on the stone. She was 60 now, her once dark hair now silver. She had saved billions with her cure, but it hadn't erased the memory of those who had died before she could help them. "My mother's name is on this wall," Bo-Ra said when Hana approached. "She died in the 3rd year. Starvation. I was 7 years old." "I'm sorry," Hana said. "Don't be," Bora replied. Her death taught me that science matters. That knowledge can save lives. That giving up is not an option. She turned to Hana. This monument isn't just about remembering the dead. It's about remembering what we learned from them. Never again. Never isolation. Never abandonment. Never leaving people to suffer alone. The dedication ceremony began. President Minseo gave a speech that was broadcast across the alliance. These names represent the price of arrogance, she said. Not our arrogance, but the arrogance of those who thought they could decide who was worthy of the stars. We remember these dead not with anger, but with determination. We will never let this happen again. Not to humans, not to any species. Afterward, there was a reception where representatives from various species offered condolences and support. But the most touching moment came when a young Keltar, part of their diplomatic mission, approached Hana. Ambassador, I wanted to ask you something, the Keltar said through a translation device. Your people suffered so much. How do you not hate the species who did this to you? Hana thought carefully before answering. Hate is easy, she said. Forgiveness is hard, but hate destroys the hater more than the hated. We chose to forgive because holding on to anger would have poisoned everything we built. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. This monument ensures we never forget. The Keltar looked up at the wall of names. My people are afraid of the galaxy. So much we don't understand, so much that could hurt us. But watching humanity give us a chance when you had none, watching you help species who once hurt you, it gives us hope. If you can be this strong and this kind, maybe we can too. That evening, in a small ceremony attended only by close friends, Admiral Ji-woo officially retired. He had served for 50 years, from the day the barrier fell to this moment of peace. President Minseo presented him with the Alliance's highest honor, awarded not just by humans but by unanimous vote of the entire assembly. I'm not a hero, Ji-woo said in his acceptance speech. I'm just someone who refused to let isolation define us. My father, Captain Hyun, told me once that they would regret leaving us in silence. He was right, but what he didn't tell me, what maybe he didn't know, was that we would be grateful for it too. The isolation made us who we are. It taught us resilience, innovation, and the value of unity. If I could go back and change it, prevent the Council from expelling us, I'm not sure I would. Because then we wouldn't be us. He paused, looking around the room. But I'll tell you what I would change. I'd save those 2 billion names on that wall. I'd spare them the suffering. That's the only regret I have. We survived, we thrived, but at a cost. Never again. 5 years later, the Alliance made first contact with a species far more advanced than any they had encountered before. The Archons had been watching galactic civilization for millennia, choosing not to interfere. But humanity's transformation, the rise of the Alliance, and the new philosophy of inclusion impressed them. They reached out, offering to share knowledge and warning of dangers that lurked in unexplored space. Ambassador Hana, now elderly but still sharp, represented humanity at the first meeting with the Archons. Their leader was an entity of pure energy, ancient beyond comprehension. We watched your species since before the isolation, the Archon said. We knew what the Council would do. We chose not to interfere because we wanted to see how you would respond. You watched us suffer? Hana asked, anger creeping into her voice despite her diplomatic training. We watched you grow, the Archon corrected. Suffering is part of growth. We could have saved you from the isolation, but then you would not have become what you are. You would have remained dependent, weak, forever the junior species begging for scraps from the Council's table. 2 billion died, Hana said flatly, and billions more lived because of what those deaths taught you, the Archon replied. We do not ask you to be grateful for the suffering, but we ask you to recognize what came from it. You became the species that could save the galaxy when it was dying. The old Council could not have done that. They were too rigid, too proud, too afraid of change. You were forged in fire, and the galaxy is better for it. Hana wanted to argue, to rage against the casual way this ancient being discussed human death. But she also understood the truth in its words. Humanity had become something special, not despite the isolation, but because of it. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you lead," the Archon said simply. "The galaxy faces threats you cannot yet imagine. Dangers from beyond. Forces that will test everything you've built. You will need to be strong, united, and wise. The isolation prepared you for this. Use what it taught you." The meeting ended, and Hana returned to human space. She was old now, tired, ready to retire. But she had one last task. She recorded a message to be placed in the historical archives, to be read by future generations. "To those who come after," she began, "you will learn about the isolation, about the 75 years when humanity was alone. You will learn about the suffering, the 2 billion who died, the hardship we endured. And you might ask, was it worth it? I cannot answer that. I will not say that those deaths had meaning or purpose. Every life lost was a tragedy. But I will tell you what came from it. We learned that we are enough, that we don't need others to complete us, though we are better with them. We learned to innovate, to survive, to unite. We learned compassion through suffering. We learned strength through hardship. The Council tried to destroy us with silence. Instead, they made us unstoppable. Not through hate or revenge, but through resilience and wisdom. Remember that. Remember that the greatest victories come not from conquering enemies, but from conquering ourselves. Remember that isolation taught us the true value of community. We were left in silence. Now our voice echoes across the galaxy. Use it wisely." As Hana finished recording, she looked out at the stars. They stretched endlessly in every direction, no longer forbidden, no longer out of reach. Humanity had come home to the galaxy, and the galaxy was better for it. The Council had regretted its arrogance, just as Captain Hyun predicted. But humanity had moved beyond revenge to something greater. They had built a future where no species would ever be left in silence again. And that, more than any victory in battle, more than any technological achievement, was humanity's greatest triumph.